Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this podcast. That today is a very, very special moment for me, and I think for Claire too. We just met each other for 10 seconds before that we are going online because I want you to feel this reunion with us. I met Claire, I think, 12, 13 years ago, just one day, one very, very special day. And that day, I found out that Claire was a photographer, which I am myself. And I was already there, also very into um, filming, getting recordings of things that was not okay. But when I meet Claire on this very special day, I realized that she have very, very big balls that like there's no way that I could ever do what she's doing. I would like her to tell how she got to be who she is. And so, really, very, very welcome to Claire Thomas. Claire, very welcome.
Thank you so much, and it's so nice to see you again. I didn't realize it's been that long. I couldn't
I think
remember actually the date, but yeah, it was some time ago, and it's very interesting to me that you introduced me and saying that I have big balls because what we did that day was equally dangerous, I think, and takes a lot of courage. I that day that we met, what was it called? Choro Gorge, Camino del Rey.
El Choro Camino del Rey, yeah,
Oh
which
my
is a
God.
path that is made up in a mountain. And it's fixed today. People have said to me I would be crying if I saw it because
Yes, I haven't been.
yeah, it's like made very nice, a track that everybody can get up in. But back then, it was actually a track that was
It
not
was.
there.
It was. I'm not going to lie. I think it was one of the best days ever because it was such an adventure done in like a safe way. There was risk involved, but like with the what was your friend's name? I couldn't remember.
Juanma.
Juan. Okay, I thought it was.
Yes,
With his guidance and his expertise, I felt like we were perfectly safe. But it was hair raising to walk along that cliff edge. It's amazing.
I have been thinking a lot afterwards because like you did something quite scary that day.
I thought you might have forgotten that.
So
Sorry.
I have been thinking, how can she be in wars when she's so clumsy, clumsy and survive? Because like, what do you remember, Claire? Because I just have my
Okay.
remembrance.
Well, it's a long time ago. My memory's not that great, other than like I loved it. But I just remember at one point, like we had to be clipped on at all times to the rope. And at one point it was a little bit tricky to stay clipped on, to climb up something. And so I feel like I just unclipped and scrambled up and then I got told off
You did.
for doing it. Is that
You did.
what you remember? Is that it?
I,
Or was there
I remember
something?
it a little bit more clearly because we had a climbing club. We took up you and your brother.
Yes.
It's not a climb, like you don't have to climb with
No.
ropes, but you are attached with the two. Yeah, I don't remember even what it's called, carabines. And when
It's
you have a
carabiner.
meeting point that is attached to the mountain, you need to click on off one and then put that on.
That's
Click off the other one and put that on. And I was walking first, you were walking second, your brother was the third, and Juanma was the fourth, so he could kind of see everything. And at a point, I turn around and I see him point to you. And he's like, she's unattached. So he's signing to me, I am getting around your brother. And it's a track like so tiny, and your
Yes.
brother was there and he had to get around your brother, and I was like getting closer to you, talking to you like nothing. And then at the same time, I think we just clicked you, and
Yes.
then Juanma was giving you like, look down, it's like 60 meters down, what are you doing?
It was
and then
fine.
and Yeah, and then we walked all the way around inside this mountain and we ended on this beautiful little white beach. And that's when we connected.
Oh, yes, yes. I
That's
remember
when
I
you
have those
told me you
pictures
were a
too.
photographer. Yeah.
Oh God, it was amazing. So I'm determined. It's taken me a long time. I should have done it by now, but I will put a photo story about that day on my website soon, this this year, because it was very special, and it's remarkable that we did it. I had the chance to do it twice, another time with some other friends, and it's remarkable because it's not there anymore, and so it's something even more special, I think.
Our house is not there. Our climbing club is
No.
not there.
Oh
Nothing.
no. Oh,
Yeah,
that's so sad. It was amazing.
yeah, it was. But we met, Claire.
We
And then we
met.
were, yes, and then we were sitting there going, I'm a photographer. Oh, me too. And then
Yes.
when I realized after Claire, then we got on Facebook together and I started to realize what you were doing. Oh my God.
Well,
Claire,
thank you. Thank
can you tell us please? Like you grew up in Wales
Yes, I grew up in the countryside in Wales. Yeah.
with horses. There's a connection with you and horses and wars.
Yes,
How yes,
it's
how
a,
does
it's
that?
a, it's a slightly odd link, I guess. Um, so yes, I grew up in Wales. For some reason, I always wanted to be around horses. Not really, my family weren't really sure where that came from. Anyway, so when I was young, I think I was 10 when I started working at stables, mucking out in exchange for free lessons. So I think those years were important in some ways in like making me very independent. I was all of my free time I just wanted to be with horses. I didn't care if I was preferably with other kids like me, but I would do it on my own. I just wanted to be with horses. I got really tough, working with these big animals. And then I got my own pony when I was 11. I was very lucky. Anyway, this love of horses stayed with me to this day. I'm obsessed with horses. And then the link between that and photography, I'd say, was when I went to work in Wyoming while I was studying at university. I went to work as a wrangler on a beautiful guest ranch called the Lazy L&B. Um, and I mean, the scenery there is so dramatic, so beautiful. That was 2006, I guess, so I first went. And a lot of the guests who were coming to the ranch were bringing these big cameras. I don't think I'd ever really seen a a big DSLR or these professional cameras. I'd never been exposed to it really. I didn't know anything about photography at that time, other than I knew I liked taking pictures on a little camera. Anyway, so I worked on the ranch for several summers and traveled as much as I could with the money I earned at the ranch. Finished my degree. I studied politics, so that also like sparked my interest in learning more about international affairs and like the consequence of the policies that I was learning about. I'm not that good with like book learn. I mean, I like learning, but I learn a lot more from seeing and experiencing. That's my way of of developing my knowledge and everything. So eventually well, gosh, it took me many years to be honest. I knew I loved photography. I started to get to the point where I thought I was quite good. I could take some nice pictures, but not knowing. I mean, I think the hardest thing with photography is finding an avenue to make it a viable business. It's very competitive, very challenging. And that took me a long time. So in the meantime, I was just doing lots of different jobs. Then I went to teach English in Spain, which is when I met you. And I loved living in Spain. It was amazing. I loved teaching, but I knew it was temporary, and I was all the time thinking of ways to make photography my work, my profession. And then everything changed. It was things were developing slowly. I was just still not sure. I didn't know anything about photojournalism. So I was thinking like travel photography, but I like taking pictures of people and taking images that have an impact or can raise awareness. So then I started to think about documentary style photography, reportage, photojournalism. Anyway, then I took that picture of the camel at the pyramids in Egypt. Coincidentally, now I live in Egypt, unrelated. And that was in, I believe, in 2015, and I was visiting Egypt on holiday and went to the pyramids like everybody does, took a picture of a camel yawning in front of the pyramids. It was a sort of a cliche image. I didn't think anything of it. I almost was going to delete it. And I don't know what, something made me upload it. I guess it stood out in the end. At the end of the trip, I thought, okay, maybe there's something interesting about this image.
You are
And
standing on your head.
no, not that one.
Okay. It's another one. Okay. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about now. We were
You know,
at
with
that.
yes,
Yes.
he's just yawning.
Yes.
And it sort of looks like the camel's trying to eat the pyramids. I guess that just it was a quirky angle. And I uploaded it to National Geographic, their like user website. And then, oh gosh, a few weeks later, I had an email from a National Geographic editor asking if they could publish the image in the magazine. I was delighted, of course. I didn't, this was, at that point, I don't think I'd had much published in magazines, certainly not Nat Geo. I was living in Barcelona. Anyway, and then after they published it as a double-page spread, which was such a rewarding moment for me. And then they asked for my invoice. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm getting paid. This is great. Bonus. I wasn't expecting it. So I said, well, okay, how much? How much am I invoicing for? And they just said, oh, well, it's for $4,500. And I was like, what? Okay, so like, I'm done with my job. I'm gonna go now.
Wow.
Of course, then anyway, that was like the turning point. That I did realize that was probably a one-off. It's hard to get anything published in Nat Geo, and I knew that other publications wouldn't have that kind of budget. But at the moment, at that time, I thought, okay, this is the trigger. I need to jump all in right now. So I quit my job teaching, and I took that money and I used it to move to Palestine, to the West Bank, for just a few months to understand the process of storytelling, learn, because I didn't study journalism or photography. So I went and
Okay, that was a huge jump you just made there. Like what?
Yes,
so
relief. I had in Palestine.
From a camel in front of the pyramids to now suddenly you want to study journalism and you're going to Palestine. What? Like why? How? Why that way?
I knew that I wanted to focus on conflict. I'm not sure why. Conflict, crises, I just knew that this was something I wanted to focus on, but I didn't necessarily know how. And then at the end of that trip in Egypt, I traveled to Jordan, overland from Egypt, and then we took a boat across. And then I ended up in Israel. We went to Jerusalem, and then I took a bus into the West Bank, and just fell in love with it the minute I stepped through the checkpoint. I was staying in a city called Hebron. And I just felt at home. I can't explain it. I had the same feeling when I arrived in Iraq the first day. I instantly felt at home and knew this was somewhere that was going to be very special to me. And I had the same feeling in the West Bank. So I just went and stayed for a few months and managed to produce quite a lot of photo stories while I was there. And it solidified that this was the right path for me.
Okay, so you studied politics, so you already have a lot of knowledge inside, I guess, what is happening in that area. So you went there. When you come in there, you start also to write. You take pictures and you write to the pictures.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, go ahead.
And then you started to send it to newspapers, or to what did you do?
Yes, exactly. So there's a lot to the story and the process. There's a lot of trial and error, obviously, but one of the crucial components of my journey was that I had a mentor. When I was learning, or trying to find my way into photojournalism, I reached out to many different photographers and photojournalists whose work I liked. And one of those people was a photographer called Jason Tanner. He's a Welsh guy. And oh my gosh, I was so lucky. He mentored me. He taught me basically everything I know. He told me like how things work, how to cope with things, how to cope with rejection, how to interact with editors, how to pitch, everything. So like I wouldn't have really managed without his guidance and his support. So yeah, so I went to Palestine, and it's now I realize, at the time I didn't, but now looking back I realize it's a fairly easy place to work as a freelancer for many reasons. The Palestinian people, many of them speak English. They're the friendliest, most welcoming people. So I felt very at ease living there, and everybody wanted to share their story. So I didn't have to hire fixers or translators. I would literally just walk around the old city and talk to people and ask them their story. And then I got to know people who are involved in various initiatives and things like non-violent resistance to the occupation. I went to some of the demonstrations against the separation wall, met some people who are very actively involved in, leading the demonstrations and things like that. So yeah, I was able to write stories. I started by writing features. Gosh, I can't remember. I think one of the first features I wrote was about a 16-year-old Palestinian guy who had been arrested, detained and tortured by Israeli soldiers for carrying a knife. And his story was that he was not carrying a knife. The soldiers approached him and threw the knife at his feet, and then said that he'd been carrying it. And for that, he was detained for a week. However, he was very lucky. He was part of a group called Youth Against Settlements, and they have at that time, I'm not sure if they still do, they had an Israeli human rights lawyer working with them. I think it was Gabby. Oh gosh, I can't remember her name. Anyway, she's an amazing lawyer, and she insisted on a DNA test on the knife, and that actually exonerated him, and it proved that the only DNA was that of the soldier. Anyway, so I was writing these stories and then gathering like photographs to illustrate it, the stories, and then I started producing more just photo essays for like Al Jazeera, where they publish, I think like 10 to 15 images and just a brief introduction and then captions. So yeah, I was doing stories there. I loved it. There was some risk involved, of course. I've ever since I've suffered from hearing loss in my right ear from a stun grenade that an Israeli soldier threw at my feet as I was running away. Yeah, it was quite an intense period of time, and I learned a lot, let's say.
What year was this?
I think it was 2015 and 2016. I was there. I went back like a few times, a few weeks at a time, and then it just got like very difficult to enter and exit the airport via Israel. It's quite tricky, but yeah, ever since I've wanted to go back, and I do hope I'll be able to at some point.
So to get into Palestine, you have to go through Israel, or
Yes, they don't have no airport at all. All of Palestine is surrounded by Israel. There's no entry points without going through Israel, so it's always difficult.
So they bother you so you have been back. How many times since then have you been back to Palestine?
I haven't been back since 2016. No. Oh. I'm too nervous to go through the airport now. At that time, I was going in as a tourist, and I could manage, but now I don't think it would be so easy, and it's a little bit scary, to be honest. Going through. It's quite.
Are you still in contact somehow with some families in Palestine?
Yes. Yeah. I made so many friends there, and some of them have been killed by Israeli soldiers since. But yeah, I'm still in touch with them.
How can they get in touch with you? They cannot get on Facebook or
yeah, they're on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
through Facebook. There's a
Yeah.
brilliant guy. I think he was on the cover of Time magazine. I think recently, if my memory's right. I really do have a bad memory. But his name is Issa Amro, and he's a leading human rights defender, and he's quite an inspiration. So I spent a lot of time with him, learning about his organization and his efforts, all non-violent, and it was terrifying. At some point I will put together a book, probably a photo book, about my time in the West Bank. I never went to Gaza. It was more complicated to get into Gaza as a freelancer. It's always a bit more tricky because at the time I didn't have press credentials. I'm not affiliated with a news agency or a news outlet, so it makes it more difficult to get those press passes then for Israel.
So, Claire, the first time you come back from that experience and a hand grenade thrown at your feet, uh, you come back, you go directly back to Wales, to your parents. Like now, I know that you just had a visit from your mother. Now you live in Egypt. She just
Yes.
visited you, and I was like, okay, you guys need some time. And but like, yeah, I would like, of course, sometimes when I have done things, I know that my mom must have been sitting going, oh my God. So I asked your mom some questions. I don't know if you have had time to ask them. So yeah, okay, thank you. So you come back to from Palestine, from the West
Yeah.
Bank to Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go back to Wales to
And
your parents, to your family.
yes. And it was interesting. I think my dad is very interested in politics, in international relations, global affairs, everything. He's very engaged, very informed. Has a much better memory than I do. My mum is interested, but less so, I think. And I asked her, how does she feel about me when I go to these places, especially in Iraq. I was on the front line, and there were days when I wasn't sure I was going to survive. But I never told her these stories really. So I think she was a little bit oblivious, and she said she just preferred to not think about it. And she always knew that I'm pretty sensible. I do assess risk, and I try not. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not in it to get killed well, nobody is, of course, but like I try as best as I can to mitigate the risks. You can't always, of course. Like, my God, my first day on the front line, a bullet whizzed past my head, and then I sat on an IED. And like, it's funny in hindsight because nobody was hurt, but many of my friends, many of my colleagues weren't so lucky, let's say. So yeah, I think my mum just doesn't think about it. Prefers not to think about the risk, and is quite glad that I'm not on the front line at the moment. But yeah, I think she just prefers to not think about it. Focus on like the simpler things. And I'm very good at keeping in touch, to be fair. Even when I was in Iraq, I would be texting from the front line saying everything's fine, whatever.
You
Yeah.
are very good because I mean, I'm not your mother, but every time that I could see that now you're going again, I was like, I mean, I had to just like fully believe, of course, that you are protected and this job is angel work and you're an angel and
Oh,
you're protected. You have to be
oh,
protected. But you also lost a lot of friends and people that you have met. How do you deal with that, Claire? Like,
well,
I get tears.
yeah.
I'm so sensitive. I get tears. Like,
Oh no, I know. Well, to be honest, I was lucky. I didn't. There were a lot of people I knew were injured, were killed, but my friends, my close friends, we were all okay. But then last year, my very good friend Pete Reed was killed in Ukraine, and I got to tell you that really hit me, and it changed the way I feel about the work. Because it's all fine when you sort of become, I don't know, slightly oblivious to the actual risk until something happens. And yeah, Pete getting killed it really affected me, because he was the guy. Pete's an American former Marine, and he was the one who was running the field clinics in Mosul, and he took me with him to Mosul. The first day we went from Erbil, where I was living, to the front line in Mosul to his field clinic. He had a call on the way there saying they had a mass casualty incident. A bunch of journalists had been blown up by an IED, and yeah, I think 3 of them were killed just in that day. I only knew one of them, and he survived. But yeah, so I don't know. Pete, he took such he risked his life every single day in order to save other people's lives. So he was like your typical hero, really. He was, and we all just thought he was kind of invincible because he was always running around on the front line, doing crazy stuff that nobody else is going to get that close. And yeah, he was. I saw him in Ukraine shortly before he died, and he was, he was doing what he loved, what he loved. That nothing was going to change this. He's always going to do it. He was going to the front line to evacuate civilians who had been injured by Russian strikes, and he was targeted. The New York Times released the video. He was, his ambulance then was hit by a Russian missile or whatever, and yeah, killed him instantly. So yeah.
I remember that. That's yeah, because you had just been there just I don't know, like shortly before, yeah.
Yeah, I saw him 2 months before, and yeah, and then I was talking to him after that, and I was going to go back because if he was there, I was like, of course I'm going to come, like definitely come back. But yeah, it was very devastating, obviously. He was just such a great guy, but then I think it makes you realize how it feels I think every person in Ukraine has lost somebody now, that yeah, I can't imagine what they're going through.
Now when you just know him, can you just say the name again, and then I just want he's a hero we got. What was his name? And
his name was Pete Reed.
Pete Reed. Okay.
Yeah. So and he was like 33.
33. And from where?
Oh, sorry, from the US.
From the US.
Yeah. And we met in Iraq in 2016.
So it's all these young, brave souls. Mm-hmm. He was sent as a soldier at that time?
When I met him, he was not a soldier. He was a medic.
He was a medic at that time, yeah.
Yes. He was in the US Marines previously. And then, he set up his own health organization called Global Response Medicine. And they were taking volunteer medics, very close to the front line. I think at certain points, the clinic, which they called a trauma stabilization point. I'm sure you've seen many pictures of my time with the medics there. And they would just set up these clinics in, abandoned stores with very basic equipment. And then they would move forward as the Iraqi forces gained territory from ISIS, and then they would set up again closer and closer to the front line. The idea being that as civilians or all soldiers, I mean, of course, they treat everybody as casualties, then cross the front line. They often wouldn't survive long enough to get to the hospital because it took time to reach the hospital. So the clinic was there to stabilize them, whatever it takes just to buy time, whether it's stemming the bleeding, putting on chest seals if there's a gunshot wound, putting on a tourniquet, whatever. They were there just like basic stabilizing, saving lives like mad. Those people just wouldn't have survived if they didn't have that immediate like emergency medical treatment in order to get them to the hospital for further treatment.
And then you are there witnessing as a witness and making everybody that you can being a witness to this. and like your pictures are, yeah, I don't know. Some of them is like, I don't know, like it's like, I don't know. This is children, like
I know.
how is
Yeah,
it? I don't know how you do that. I know myself with the camera is somehow feel protected behind it. There's like
exactly.
a filter. Is that what you? Is that what
Yes,
you feel as well? Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
And yeah, I think on the first day I was there, I was like, oh my God, you know, I feel like such an idiot. I can't be here taking pictures. I need to help.
Mm.
I was having like, I was questioning everything. I was like, should I just go home and learn how to be a paramedic? Because I can't feel like this. It's horrible. Just like
In
people, and because,
Ukraine, sorry, was that a
sorry,
feeling
this
you got in
in
Ukraine?
Iraq,
In Iraq?
sorry. Yeah. So the first day I went to the front line to the trauma stabilization point, because until that point I'd never really seen the human cost of conflict in such a visceral, intense way. Like this was like dead bodies coming through nonstop, children blown up with horrific injuries, the most devastating things. The injuries were awful to see, but the things that really hit me and stayed with me was the reaction of the family members. Like a father crying over the body of his dead baby, or mothers, things like that. Like people's suffering was really traumatic. But yeah, so in the beginning I felt useless. I didn't like that feeling. I wanted, especially as a woman, because in in a conservative society like Iraq, when injured women were coming to the clinic, they would prefer to be treated by a woman, and there were many more male medics than women. Luckily, Pete's organization had 3 or 4 female medics at each time, and they were absolutely amazing. Though those women are my heroes. They are angels. I've never been so inspired and so in awe of anything in my life. They're amazing. But anyway, I felt awkward that I wasn't able. The women would also look to me and be like, can you help me? And of course I can't. All I can do is take your picture, which is not going to help you at all. So it's a hard thing to tackle with mentally. But in the end, I thought I just made the decision, like, I'm here to do this job. I've just got to do it to the best of my ability. I don't have medical skills. I can't help in that way right now. All I can do is take the pictures in a sensitive way, hold a hand where I can. I always told the medics, like, if there's something I can do to help, I want to do it. And I think most journalists, most photographers have that same attitude. Just, be a good human. A lot of the time there's not much you can do anyway, but some of the moments that stayed with me the most were when I did put the camera down and try to help in some way, or go with a medic to the hospital and you know just be there as a support, or like put on chest seals on a kid with multiple gunshot wounds all over her body, and like collapsed lungs, and then hold the kid as the medic does a needle decompression to save her life until you get to the hospital. So things like that. But yes, you're right in the sense that the camera gives you some kind of separation, like a professional distance in some ways. But I also always think that you can be crying, you can still take a picture through tears. Not that you need to be there, being very emotional and stuff, but there were moments where, of course, I was going, like, you'd be dead inside if you weren't emotional, So yeah, it was
I need
challenging.
water.
Yes, yes.
I need water. When did you go to Iraq the first time? Because I remember that. And you
Yes.
ended up in the front line. Did you know that you were going to the front line when you
No,
went? No.
no, because
Well,
I didn't think I'd be able to, because I'm
okay. Can
freelance.
so why did you go? When? Why? And what? Iraq.
So I was at the time, it was December 2016, and at that time I was living temporarily, based for a while in Greece, covering the refugee crisis. And I'm not really sure why, but I knew that a lot of journalists were based in northern Iraq, in the city of Erbil, which is very safe and very comfortable, and like one of my favorite places in the world. And I don't know why, but I guess I just decided to go to northern Iraq. I knew the offensive to get rid of ISIS in Mosul had started some weeks before. But I thought, like, all of the, the staff photographers, the news agencies, they're all covering this battle very widely. So my idea was to go there and tell stories around the periphery of the war, so related to the humanitarian crisis of people who had been displaced because of the battle. And that's what I did initially. And there were so many stories. I mean, I think sometimes going to a place with fresh eyes it can be beneficial and not beneficial, because you might not be so familiar with the context. But it also enabled me to see what makes a good story very easily, because it was all new to me. It was all interesting. So I went for 2 weeks initially, and I did I published 6 or 7 stories in that time, which is more than I would normally hope to publish. So there was just so much. Like, I did a story about Palestinians who have generations of Palestinians who live in Iraq and who are stateless and can't get jobs, can't leave the country, things like that. Gosh, I can't remember the other stories now. Oh, about the oil well fires. That was a big story I did. That was interesting, visually fascinating, absolutely devastating for the people who lived there. Golly, I mean, it was so toxic. But 19 oil wells blown up by ISIS. It was astonishing. And so anyway, I didn't think as a freelancer I would be able to access the front line, because my understanding was that, as a photojournalist, access is everything. Without access, you're not getting any stories. And I had assumed that in order to be embedded with a military, a unit of the military, you needed to be affiliated with a publication, a news organization, and obviously I wasn't. But no, in Iraq, that's not how it works. You just hire a fixer. And I was lucky. When I went, I moved into a big house in a very nice Christian neighborhood called Ankawa. And in that house, we were 10 people living there, all foreigners, all journalists, reporters, photographers. And I was very lucky to learn from them, and they're all like very accomplished in their fields. So anyway, because as a freelancer, you're not funded, right? You self-fund, and then when you publish, you make the money back. So we would join forces and hire fixers in a group. If there's a story I think the first story I did there was about Christians returning to a recently liberated neighborhood near Mosul. So we were 3 people, 1 fixer. We were all telling, gathering this similar kind of content, but for our own stories. Anyway, and then I found out that, it was possible for me to go to the front line. So I jumped at the opportunity and went from there.
And I just remember all your pictures. It's because so it's not many pictures from there, I guess. Because of course I know you and I followed you, but it is like now when you're telling the story, your photos pop up. I know exactly which pictures you're talking about.
Really?
When you say toxic, it's because it's almost black, the picture.
Yes.
Of black smoke. The picture of the boy with the I don't know the names of these machine gun rifle.
Yes, me neither.
Very young boy. Yeah, no, it's not a gun. A gun is like a thing. This is
like an assault rifle of some kind. It's probably what are they called? AK-47, I think.
AK-47 or something like that. Where was that, from Iraq as well?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So that was from that first day that I went to the front line. More things happened in that one day than the rest of the time I was there, I think. So I mean, as I told you, I went for 2 weeks, and then I I felt like invested in the story, and I felt like I could do some good work there. So I went back shortly after, and I stayed for another 2.5 years. So it really became my home. I loved it. But yes, so that picture, that's one of my favorite pictures, actually. It was just of that guy. I
Me
think he
too.
was a member
Yes.
of a militia unit fighting. They were like fighting alongside Iraqi army, and that's, I love Iraq. I mean, they see a camera and they come out and they're like, take a picture. You know, it's great. So and it was just a very dramatic scene. And then from there we joined another militia unit and went to the front line, not in Mosul, but in a village south of the city. So it was kind of like in the desert and deserted. Of course, all the civilians had fled. And it was just a battleground. It was quite surreal. A battleground, but within that, there were moments of such calm that everybody would start eating lunch. And you're like, there was just a gunfight and some mortars over there. And then they're like, would you like some rice? You know? And you're like, holy, yes, I would. You know? It's very bizarre. I mean, I think for everybody, you know, it's for soldiers, like they're used to fighting, especially in Iraq. You know, they've lived through so many conflicts, and they just it's just sort of becomes quite normal. But yeah, that day we were like, at some point we were taking cover behind an abandoned house, waiting for the gunfight to stop or whatever, so that they could move forward. And we were just sitting around, and then these soldiers came over and were like, hey, Sura, meaning photo. So I was like, I don't know if they mean they want me to take a picture of them. And then they were like, no, it's like selfie. So I said, okay, sure. So I stood up and they took my helmet off. They did, you know, whatever. They took the helmet off for a quick picture. And then as this other guy was taking the picture on his iPhone, I felt a bullet whiz past my ear. You know, you felt not the actual bullet, but the gust of air that it blew. And then the soldiers, we all heard it, and we were a bit shocked. And then the soldiers burst out laughing. And I was like, oh my God, I asked the fixer, like, why are they laughing? And after they'd finished laughing, he said, well, they think it's funny because if you heard it, you didn't die. So yay.
But what? Why did they ask you to take the helmet off?
Just for the picture. It was an accident. There wasn't, the bullet ricocheted off another building or whatever, but they thought it was safe enough to remove the helmets. They weren't wearing helmets, and they just wanted a picture to show their friends or whatever. They just love having pictures. And at the beginning, I felt I couldn't say no because I'm there taking pictures of them. So who am I to say no to them having a picture with me? You know, I felt like, but in the end, you have to stop and say no, because it just becomes a bit relentless.
I think as a photographer, one of the things that can be difficult is to ask people permission. But you think that when you are in these war zones, they are all kind of very open. They're all, or are you in places where?
I mean, it depends on the context. So if you're photographing people in a displacement camp or something, where it's not like an active hot zone, then of course you have to ask. Always. I mean, yes, and even without like language, I just would like show my camera and be like yes or no. And if somebody hesitates or they're not sure, I just won't take the picture. But yeah, you have to be able to quickly ask, is it okay if I take a picture? And then if there's time and space, then explain. Obviously, I would, if I'm taking portraits of people and telling their story and sitting with them, of course you begin by having a conversation. I'm a journalist, I want to tell your story, can I take a picture? Blah blah blah. And they agree or don't agree, that's fine. However, when you're on the front line, of course there's no, you just don't have the time to talk to people really. So yeah, it's tricky. But even then, like in the field clinic, I don't know, I would take pictures, I guess, of whatever I could, and then show them the picture if I could, or like if it was a kid, show the parent, and then just try and gauge if they're okay with it. as best as you can. But yeah, it's a really tricky one when you're in an intense environment where things are moving very, very quickly, because I do believe that it's very important to still capture those moments without, and without being exploitative. It's a very fine line, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, you just have to be
Yeah,
very.
my next interview that I'm gonna have one of these days is with my really good friend Alice from Milano that I worked with in Peru, saving some boys from trafficking, and we have to
Oh,
show pictures from there, but we cannot put the faces. We
yeah,
cannot. We already did that, like because we were screaming out for help. So had
yeah,
to show all the world to collect money and didn't really think too much about that they can be recognized. They can be
yeah.
recognized. And they actually
Yes.
didn't give us permission to this. So in the
Okay.
future we have to cover them what they look like today. So we can keep the photos from when they were young, but today we have to consider really like taking
Yeah.
care of them in another way. What about that picture that you have of the little girl that is sitting with all bandage,
Hmm.
and I think it's just blood and mud she got everywhere?
Oh my
Because
God.
yeah, is that from
That
Iraq as well, or where is that
also
from?
from Iraq, yes, from that field
Yeah.
clinic. Yeah, that was really sad. But she was stable. The medics weren't too worried about her because her injuries were not life-threatening, so that was a blessing. But she just had that like tearless look of shock. She just was, yeah, completely in shock. I don't know where her parents were. They weren't with her as far as I'm aware. And I've never been able to track her down. I wanted to. I really wanted to find her. Some of the others, we were able to locate them because once they come into the clinic, they're stabilized and they're rushed off to hospital, and it's just chaos. So you can't really keep track, of who's who. But yeah, like I felt like it was important to take her picture. It's graphic and horrifying, but it's the reality of the war. This is what we're there to do. Um, yeah, it was
And
awful.
what is our legal rules when we witness this and we cannot find parents and either the girl later on? Are we allowed? I guess we are because you have sold these pictures. So it's
Yes,
more
I mean
like
there's no hard and fast rules really, because you can, as a photojournalist, you're allowed to photograph anybody in a public place. If it's in their homes or a private space, then of course you need permission. So yes, there's the ethical boundaries are dependent on the situation. There's so many different scenarios, I guess. So if it's like a survivor, a child survivor of sexual violence or something like that, then we would automatically conceal their faces, hide their identities. If there's any risk, so we just have to make a judgment call pretty quickly, whether or not capturing the image and publishing the image can pose any kind of risk to that person, particularly a child. Um, but in this situation, it was, she wasn't, as far as we know, it was, she's not a survivor of sexual violence. It was simply an image to show the impact of the bombs, the violence on children. And I took many pictures of the children in coming into the field clinic, with horrific injuries. So yeah, I think those kind of pictures are important to take, and to share. Of course, it's better if there is a parent always, but yeah, she would. I knew that sharing her picture wasn't going to put her at risk. She was a victim, a survivor. She's yeah, and I felt like it was important to publish that picture. Other situations I've been in, it's sometimes like a conundrum. You're not really like, I was assigned to capture images for Amnesty International of ISIS affiliated families, ISIS brides in Iraq who were in camps. Yeah, they were living in displacement camps at the time. And they obviously, for that, they didn't want to show any of their faces or identifiable features at all. And the women didn't like that. They were like, well, we don't have anything to hide. Why can't you show our face? We're not ISIS. Our husbands were ISIS. It wasn't our choice. We didn't support that. So why can't you show our faces? So then you're like, fair point, you know. So I would take both, and then I knew that
Okay.
the organization was only going to publish the ones where you couldn't see their face.
And I want to like try to inspire some people because I know many people. I have seen freedom fighters here in Denmark this summer going, I'm gonna go there and see what is happening instead of
Mm.
staying at home, trusting the media, have this eager to go and check out themselves. And I think we can really do a huge difference if a lot of people do it. Like you said before, when you were a tourist, like the first time you're going, it was easy to get in. As soon as you are a journalist, you cannot get the same material out. So
Mm.
maybe to inspire some more people to go out there. I don't know how, because it's of course it's something inside of some very special people. But I know there's
Mm.
a lot of angels out there that maybe just need a little boost to make their life real and important and to be able to change other people's lives with exposing, being a witness, taking that on you. Can you like I know that you have been through so many things that would traumatize a lot of people and would give them PTSD and how are you how did you go how did you come this far so far without having that? What do you do to take care of yourself? I see you on a camel, on a horse, being on your head, head standing on a horse. Like, so I know you do yoga. Is that one of the things? Like, what are you made of? What is it you're made out of?
Oh, that's so funny. Um, yeah, so I guess I'm lucky that I don't think I mean no I was going to say that my experiences haven't affected me. I think all of our experiences, whatever they are, affect us in ways that we might not really identify. But I do think it's important to look after ourselves first. Otherwise, you just can't really help or do anything good if you're I learned this actually when I was a 20 something graduate and I went to work in Ghana thinking that I'd be able to help. But of course, who am I to help? I have no skills, so it's like there was really not much I could do to help other than go and learn. And I learned a lot. I went to to Ghana, and I was living with a Ghanaian family who just wonderful people, and they had a small community-based organization that was supporting women and some men living with HIV. And I was going to do like awareness or something, but like I'm not an expert, so it was. I think there's some arrogance in that, that we think that we can just go and help because like like the solutions have to come from them, and they I just learned from them, absolutely. But I did learn I learned about the situation of HIV anyway, and we would go and visit these women that were being supported by the organization, and we talked to them, and the organization was giving them some food and giving them some money. And when the women would talk and tell their story and their daily struggles, I was getting quite upset. And my host mother, who was running the organization, I think one day she took me aside and she was like, you need to sort yourself out, because you're not helping anybody when you're like this. You're just making it worse for them. Like, we're here and we have to be strong for them. That's how we help. And it stuck with me. And I thought, oh my gosh, yes, I'm just adding to the problem by being sad. Like, there's a balance, you have to be empathetic, obviously, but like, letting it get to you too much, it means that it's only impacting you more and negatively, and it prevents you from being a source of strength and support, I think, for the people who need it. So yeah, I learned that a while ago, and I try to look after myself. I'm a talker, right? Like I like to talk to people about, especially if I'm not feeling good about something. I feel like I have to talk about it. I'm not good at just like suppressing my emotions. I don't know. I guess that helps. What I did struggle with was after the war ended in Iraq, I'd been there at that point for a few months. It ended in July 2017. They declared victory over ISIS in Mosul. And I thought, well, maybe this is a good time for me to take a break for my mental health, process things, go home, reflect, be in a calm, safe environment. And it was probably the worst thing I could have done. That really affected me, because then I felt rage, going home and like, nobody cares. Nobody cares because we're so removed, right? And I was like, but we're involved. Like, we did this. We're like, we're very, very much involved in this devastation. And now I understand it more. So I made everybody look at my pictures. Like, I would put on a slideshow at my dad's house, and I'm not sure people particularly liked it. But I just found it really difficult, because then I couldn't talk to anybody who could relate. In Iraq, I was surrounded by people who were experiencing the same thing or similar, and we were seeing the same thing. We could have these conversations about what we were witnessing. And I think that was very, very important. So I stayed away for a couple of weeks, or a little more, I think. And then I went back to Iraq and felt much better. Felt much, much better. And just to be around like-minded people. And, and I think it's really important to be self-aware and know, like, what, if something is starting to take an impact, then find ways to feel better about it. Because at the end of the day, we really have to take care of ourselves first, I think. So for me, dogs, horses, nature, travel, I don't just focus on conflicts now. I don't live in Iraq anymore. So, I go to Mongolia, places like that. I'm trying to find a nice balance between stories that are very hard hitting and difficult to process, and more uplifting, visually beautiful, stories of culture and, I don't know, strength and beauty.
I know exactly what you mean, because I am working with these children and this trafficking that is going on. That when I had this experience 2 years in a row in Peru with Alicia, and she went back to Peru 2 weeks ago and just arrived back home 2 days ago. She had been on my phone since she arrived every day, because she's like, "You're the only one who understands me. Please be with me." Like, so it's really so nice to be able to share it, and it can be so painful and frustrating to come back and nobody wants to listen. Yeah, or cannot. You cannot really get into it in that core of the pain and suffering that you are witnessing. It's like kind of impossible, and you're like, please, everybody, we need to make a change. Like, like, do you feel that you're making a change, even if it's, what I feel you're making a huge change?
Oh, thank you. Oh God, that's a hard question. Do I think my work makes a difference? I don't think, not on its own. No, I think it's, collectively, visual storytelling definitely has an impact, of course, collectively. But I mean, it's impossible really to measure, isn't it, whether or not your work does influence. But even if it just informs one person of what the reality is for, people affected by conflict, occupation, crises, then that's good enough. I think that's important in itself. What I love about photography is when you can measure the impact. Like I mentioned Ghana. When I was there, as I mentioned, I felt a bit useless, as in some way. So I tried to find another way that I could be of use. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I can raise some money for whatever the women need. So when we went and visited them, I was like, well, what is the one thing that you're really missing that you could benefit from every day? And they all said a bed. They were sleeping on the ground, no mattress, no foam, just a sheet on the ground, and it was very uncomfortable. And it was kind of leaving them a little bit vulnerable to opportunistic infections and stuff like that. So anyway, I was like, okay, I think I can raise money for beds. Let's try it. So I took pictures of the women. And it was the pictures that raised the money, and I took a picture of a woman sitting on the ground, and this is where she sleeps. And I felt like that had a direct impact on the fundraiser. So that was very inspiring. And then I raised the money just for 70 something beds. We went back and then bought the mattresses and then delivered them. And it was just a very rewarding thing. So I felt like that in those ways, compelling images can have a tangible impact.
And that's why I would like to inspire others to go out and do what you feel when you meet a problem. That's the
Yes.
problem you take care of, and you get money for that. Because the Red Cross and all these big, I mean, where I have been working in Peru, where it's actually like it should be military work if they have to change this area. And this is young students from Europe who is doing this work that have no idea what they are doing when they arrive. And if we are helping or not, a hug, playing with a hula ring and playing with them, of course, feels rewarding. But it's also a damage because you're going to leave that place. There's going to come
Exactly.
another one. You cannot
Exactly.
really take care of their mental health. You cannot really do anything. So
Yeah.
to find people like Alicia, like my friend, and like you, I am having you on and Alicia on as the first ones here because you are the two most powerful women I know. You are.
Oh,
You have
please.
so big balls. And I think that it can just, so I don't think that you can just help people with your pictures, seeing what is wrong in Iraq or Palestine, but to show what one human is able to do if they take the fear away from their life. Because I guess you are scared sometimes, but
Absolutely.
you're still doing it, and there's something in you that, yeah, wants to live for real, I guess, like since you're doing it.
Yes. It's hard to explain. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it takes a certain personality, I guess, to want to go into areas that are risky for whatever reason, whether it's health risks or bombs, whatever. But yeah, I found that I could do it, and I could stay calm. I'm not normally in certain situations. I'm not sure my husband would say I'm particularly calm and collected, but when I'm on the front line or when there's like a high risk, I feel like extremely calm. Like I think my blood pressure goes down probably, but give me like a broken dishwasher or something and I go berserk.
That's why I think it's angel work, because it is like, I don't know as well what I have been experiencing. I think a lot of people would really mentally be very destroyed or need a lot of help. And sometimes I consider as well, like, why am I not more affected? I am very, very affected, but it's still like, when I started the fight here in Denmark about that they were forced removing the children here in Denmark illegally, and I suddenly had 13. Yeah, they do big time.
Oh,
This is trafficking, yes.
oh
And then I
no.
started to make interviews with the parents who they have forced to remove their children. And suddenly I had these parents inside my life, inside my house. And I don't think that you can actually almost experience worse pain than somebody taking your child
No.
illegal without any reason. So that pain broke my heart, broke my spirit, broke it all into like, until I came on
No.
the other side and go, oh my God, I need to be objective in this. I need to step over it. I cannot help each one of you. I cannot
Yeah.
let you into my life anymore. If I want this to change, I need to get up, see it from up, what is going on, and expose that. And that's what I'm still doing.
Wow, that's
And
amazing. Oh my God, that's really difficult. I think it's much more difficult when it's in your own country. For some reason,
yeah,
if it's in your own backyard, like I don't know. I think it's just harder mentally when your own.
it is, and actually it was because like I felt really it was easy. It is not easy, but when I came to Peru, I was like they also feel that they need help from outside. So they are
Hmm.
very thankful for that help that we can give, even if it's a soup for another people today
Yeah.
or clothing or whatever. Then they're very thankful. So you can see that it's good that we come from outside. And then I had this friend from Australia through so many years, like maybe since 96. And I kept hearing her voice. And I met her again 5 years ago. And she said, work locally, work locally. And I'm like,
Mm.
but why? It's so much more easier outside.
Mm.
But then when I came back from Peru, I I hear, and I think I would have overheard it if it was not because I just experienced that Peru this was politically trafficking of children, and I it was open, it's public that this area is so criminal into this. So I think I wouldn't have listened our new minister because I don't listen to politicians in Denmark. I cannot anymore. I cannot listen to them. It's
Oh God.
not. So why I listen? It was her first speech as a minister. I hear her
Okay.
say that she wants 50,000 children force removed. And maybe I wouldn't have thought about it if I was not like at that time into looking at trafficking, and realized that the average have been 12,000 for the last 20 years. So that's suddenly a very big number that she wanted. So yes, that's what I'm working. This is happening
And
all over the world, Claire. This is
what do they want? Are these refugee children or
no,
undocumented
no,
or
no,
what is?
no, no. No, this is Danish children. This is yeah, and I'm working together with an old man that is from what is that called in English? Like an old army police from the cold working under the Cold War. Like he's a 70-year-old man that he have made me the 35 strategies that they're using to force remove the children illegal, which starts with a lie. So they're called into the office in the commune and told a lie about this. They cannot recognize the story that is, so we have a concern in your family. This is the concern, and the
Oh,
family cannot recognize it, so they have to defend one thing that they cannot defend because it's not. That's how it's
wow.
rolling. Yeah.
Oh,
And then the strategy number 35 is like 2 years later, there's no connection between parents and child. This is happening big time, not in just in Denmark, Norway, Sweden, I guess also in England, but in another way, Canada, Australia. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a big thing.
Well,
And
keep
and
doing
people,
this work. It's
sorry.
extraordinary. Keep doing this amazing work to expose all of this.
Yeah, but then comes that balance that we were talking about into it. And I
Mm.
see how you are a pro. And I'm so happy for you that you realized when you were young that that you had to balance it because
Mhm.
I just went like full on in and I didn't try to even cover myself in any way. And which meant that they have put me into mental institution here in Denmark for 23 hours because that I said, you're kidnapping the children. But they had to let me out because a lawyer was agreeing with me on a radio station on the same day. So
Oh
they had
my
to let
God.
this is what they're doing now to us who is exposing it. Yeah. So I would like
Oh,
also to say it from outside the country for sure.
yes.
And so I want to get into the balance. Yes, really, we can take that another time because I want to talk about you. um, and the balance, that balance thing, because um, it's so important. Yeah. So I realized with those 13 families, you cannot do this any longer. You're gonna die. I'm
Yeah.
gonna die. My hair turned gray in like a
Oh
year, just
no.
gray. So
Oh no.
uh, yeah. So so I started also saying I want to do interviews with people that I love and that I have, yeah, that I just feel are amazing people and who can help change the world. And I believe so much you're one of them. And to not finish this quickly, but you are balancing this with traveling to the most beautiful places, and you're so lucky you can ride a horse because I cannot. And I I really would
You
love to.
can. I would
I
teach you in a
know
day.
I know I have done it in another life because when I drive my car down to a forest out here, every time for years I get to that point, I feel even that I don't have hair now, I feel like a wind. And then I see myself over this field, like, and I love them so much. I just spent 3 days in Portugal with 7 horses to connect.
Oh,
I did, and I really, I didn't get on top of them. I was just close to a friend's seven
great,
horses. Yeah, it
great.
was
That's no,
very
that's all it
beautiful.
takes is
Yes,
just being close to horses, I think.
yeah.
Amazing.
And I just
Yeah.
saw a healing center in South Africa where she's putting out like massage beds, and then people are lying there, and then the horses are coming to heal them and just
Oh,
standing there. I want to go there.
yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I think animals are just the best things in the world. It's well, now I have these two dogs who are sleeping by my feet right now, and you can't I can't be sad when I'm around them. They just make
No,
me smile all day. I love it. Dogs, animals, cats, whatever, any animal, it just it's healing. It's wonderful. There's
it
nothing
is.
better.
No.
Yeah.
And so you went to Mongolia a few times.
Yes, I've been 4 separate trips, and on Monday I go back, and I'm guiding a photo tour there with in the Altai Mountains in the west. So that'll be fun. I love Mongolia. It's a remarkable country. It's just it's all about the people for me. That's what drives me in my work generally is connecting with people, getting to know them, learning about different lives, different lifestyles, different problems. I love it, and the Mongolian people are so hospitable, so welcoming, so open and generous with their time, their homes, everything. It's a great place. It's a great place to visit. I recommend it to everybody.
I want to come with you one day.
You,
Do
you
I have to write? Do I
no,
have
you
to
don't
be
have
able
to
to write
run.
this?
No,
No.
not at all. No, only one of my trips requires riding, and you would be able to do it in with absolute ease. Like you don't have to be a rider. But for this trip I'm doing to visit the eagle hunters, there's no mandatory riding at all. It's optional. So
I have to learn to write, and I want to visit you. And you live now in Egypt.
yes, yes, it's
What?
lovely. Yeah, so my husband's Egyptian. We met in Iraq in Baghdad a few years ago, and yeah, so we're based here now, and it's very nice. It's a very interesting place. The summer is very difficult. The rest of the year is beautiful. We have these two rescued beagles, and yeah, I like it. It's very nice, and for me, it's great. Like it's a great base. I can easily get to Iraq. I go back as often as I can. And it's not too far from the UK. So yeah, it's a very, very nice place. I'm grateful that it's my second home, and you have to come
But
visit.
how far away? Yes, I would really love to. I haven't been to Egypt, and it is, of course, one of the places. I have a story from a 6-year-old boy who have told me things about the pyramids. I need to go there. It's
Absolutely.
and to visit you, I would absolutely love. Claire. I want to
Good.
just get back to the balance thing to do before we. Yeah, this is how you balance it. But you do yoga as well because else you couldn't headstand like that.
Yeah, I tried. I love doing yoga. I'm not that good anymore. I'm not so flexible, but I try. But yes, I don't really know what possessed me to do a headstand on the back of a horse, or like I did it on a paddle board. Whatever I can, I stand. I don't know. I used to be silly, but it's just
Okay.
fun, right? Why not?
Well, I learned it last year, so I will go after you now. I try to do it strange places. And Claire, how is your brother?
good. Thank you for asking. You know, we often reminisce about that day in Spain, but he's doing very well. Thank you. He's based in Wales now and still doing more crazy stuff than me, to be honest. He's constantly traveling. He's got, you know, he's really into motorbikes. He's obsessed with his motorbikes, off-road dirt biking, doing crazy stuff, breaking bones, essentially. And yeah, taking things to extreme. I don't think he ever grew up. So, you know.
But I see you on motorbike as well, like a
Yes, I
big
brought my
one.
motorbike.
So you are seriously just two wild
Yes.
adult kids.
Yes, exactly. Neither of us grew up. I mean,
Where
I
does
like motorbikes, but not like him.
where does he live?
He lives in Wales at the moment, but he's works in England, so he's between England and Wales. But he was just in. He travels around Europe a lot, and you know goes back to Spain every opportunity. I think he goes to Greece a lot. So yeah, he travels around on his with his dirt bike and his van, and he's doing very well. Thank you very much for asking. Yeah, he'll be pleased. I'll tell him that we spoke.
Yes. And so, Claire, is there any? Are you still collecting any money donation? Do you have anything going donation for anyone? Some projects going on, or
Oh, good question. Thank you. I had a GoFundMe going for a little girl in Iraq. I don't know if you saw it on my website. I think it's called Maya's story. It's a little girl called Maya, and she lives with this very rare genetic skin disorder called epidermolysis bullosa. And I was raising money for her. We raised, I think, £10,000 some time ago. I'd stopped raising money for her, but I think because we got enough, you know, we were raising money to be able to supply her with the medical treatment. If you see the pictures, you'll know what I mean. Like she
I
has
know what
these
you mean.
blisters all over her body. It's horrific, and the family just can't afford to pay for these basic medical supplies because she needs so much of it. She needs gauze, the ointment, saline solution. They need it in bulk. I mean, what she really needs is to get out of Iraq. So this is, yeah, I was trying to find a way to help them to get her, you know, the family asylum, medical-based asylum outside Iraq, because they've been living in a displacement camp for a decade, and they're just not able to take care of her medical needs. So basically the GoFundMe is still active, and I'm going to start to recirculate that soon. But feel free to share that. That would be very helpful. Any
We
money
would,
that we raise will go to the family and for Maya's medical care.
I would get that link before we get this online and link it
Oh,
onto that.
brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah.
And then what is your the next plan is in what did you say? 6 days you are going to Mongolia again?
Yes, on Monday I head back. I feel like I just left there. I was there in June, so I feel like it's very quick. So photo tour starting Monday or next week, and then I will I'm going to go home to Wales for Christmas, so I'm looking forward to that. And then hopefully I have some. Yeah, I think I can say it's very new, but I think I will be starting to work on my first photo book as soon as I'm back from Mongolia. So I have many books that I want to produce. You know, I have so much work from all over the place, and I think it's about time that I start to put them into books. So I have a publisher I'm working with. So hopefully by this time next year, my first photo book will be out.
Yeah, I can't wait. And you have a few already National Geographic awards, and you have other awards, and
Um, Yeah, well, I've been nominated for a number of awards, but last year I won the Outstanding Impact Award at the Amnesty International Media Awards for some work I did with the Sunday Times chief foreign correspondent Christina Lamb when we went to work in Syria, northeast Syria, to work on a story about British ISIS brides who are still stuck in detention camps there. So yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'm pleased. That was a really nice thing.
Wow, Claire, it's been so nice to catch up again after so many years. I can't
I
believe it.
know, isn't that mad? Thank
Wow.
God for Facebook. People, I know social media
Yes,
is not great and everything, but it definitely keeps us connected. So I'm
it does.
grateful for that. Mm.
Yes, we have to. It's a magic tool until we learn to do the telepath
Yes.
to each other again. This is teaching us how to do it somehow. I lost everybody because I got my original Facebook deleted like 3 months, 3 weeks into the corona. It just
Oh,
said deleted. Your account have been deleted permanently. So I
no way.
lost everybody. I lost everybody, and I had to start all over again.
Oh, that's
Um,
terrible.
yes, I felt kind of lost. But I lost also my address book in Australia, in Sydney,
Oh,
in 2000, and that was before Facebook. And I
oh
lose
no.
this address book with all friends from all over the world I met the last 2 years in London. And then suddenly that's when I was studying photography in Denmark. And I just began pretty old compared to the other students. And this young student, she comes and she say to me, are you on MySpace? And I'm like, I'm on what? And she's like, are you on Facebook? And I'm like, no, no, I don't do drugs. I say to her. And then that's when I realized what Facebook was. And that's when I started to find everybody I lost back from the
Oh,
96. Yeah, was so amazing. So I appreciate a
wow.
lot.
Yeah.
Um, the AI is good for some things and bad for some other things. And
Exactly, exactly. I don't think it's like the doom and gloom. It's another thing that we have to learn to live with and use properly. That's
I'm
all.
sitting here looking at you.
Oh,
Claire, do you have
well,
something else that you would like to share? I think maybe in like because now I'm introducing a lot of people over the next months, and
good.
then I think maybe later there would be subjects where it's very interesting to mix you together in
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah,
So
sure.
I hope you will come back, and
With
I hope
pleasure.
I will be able to come and visit you soon, kind of.
Definitely. Yes, you have to. You have to. Oh, that would be great. Well, thank you so much for, giving me the chance to talk about, my work and everything. And, because my work means a lot to me. So it's very nice to talk about it with somebody who's experienced similar things and can relate. So it's a pleasure. Thank you.
It's different, but it's the same. And they say also that it takes one to see one. So I guess that
Oh,
all the ones that is going to be interested in looking at this podcast have it
mhm.
inside of them to make a big change on this planet Earth that really need a big change. I think we can agree.
Exactly. Oh, good. All
Okay,
right.
love. I will get back to you on the back of this interview.
Please do. Yes. Good.
And we will link up to um, your webpage, clairethomasphotography.com,
Hmm.
and into this GoFundMe for this
Yes.
girl with the pictures that you can see that she is really having a really, really bad skin disease. That if
Yeah.
you have anything to spare for this family, and then I just want, together with Claire, I think, say to all of you to make that difference. And thank you for you, Claire. I really love you. I really love you for all that you are and do
Oh,
for this world.
thank you. Likewise, Annette. And thank you for you're so supportive of my work. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
I'm
right.
gonna press end here, and I don't know if we're gonna disappear or, or we're gonna stay.
Oh,
But Ciao.
No. Bye. Bye. Bye.